No, look, Wooly, this is a bit lazy. That's a lazy comment, and I think a lot of the journalists are very lazy on this, and they're building up Liam here.
The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
A little bit of Sliabh Lemon. Brian, you don't like that song, which is absolutely outrageous. I absolutely love it.
Well, compared to Limerick and the Cranberries and Zombie eating out around Crow Park last year, it's a bit different to Sliabh Lemon. It slows it down a bit, but nah.
No, it definitely does.
So too close to Tipperary.
A brilliant song and a brilliant performance, let's be honest, by Tipperary. They scored their first 5 shots of the second half. They scored 2-3 from play. Game over. Like, realistically, for the neutrals, it wasn't a good game, because when it was competitive, it was scrappy and the rain was kind of ruining it. And then when the actual hurling was being played, it was only played by one team in the second half, and it wasn't a contest. So an All-Ireland final, Cheddar, you've watched a lot of them, which probably won't be remembered for too long outside of Tipp. Would that be fair?
I think certainly most of the second half, it was very, very obvious that Tipp were going to move on. It was only really a matter of how much then. The goals were important, and I suppose, when you score 3 goals, and particularly from playing a game, you're expected to go on and win the match. But I think there was a lot of sort of subplots to it as well, particularly in terms of once Tipp got into form and in the way they played, was very, very interesting. It certainly wasn't traditional, is all I'll say. And I think it was very interesting as well. We spoke with Dermot here maybe last week, Wooly, about when Wexford had a man up of how they played the game. Well, look, Tipp showed how you use an extra man yesterday in terms of moving the ball and working the ball through the hands, and also changing size of the field. They ran, I suppose, Kilkenny defence ragged in the last 10 or 15 minutes there. And to be honest with you, I would probably say, Wooly, that Tipp were a small little bit sloppy. They could have actually won by more, to be honest with you, at that stage. But there was other issues as well that we might, in terms of the way Kilkenny used the ball and that.
Yeah, definitely.
Even a man down and that. Yeah. Did they simply play into the extra man that Tipp had? Look, we might talk about that later on.
We will. We'll talk about that in part 2, and I'll give you the answer that yes, they did. We'll see what you two experts have to say about it. But we saw some brilliance then. The Callanan pass for Bubbles goal. I talked to Seamie in the Clayton Hotel this morning. That's coming up now very soon. But that point was on there, Brian. That's going for the jugular. And then the control from Bubbles. It was a rocket across to him in the square, and he had to control it and stick it in.
And I'd say he was the only one in Crow Park that saw it.
Yeah.
Seamie,
I didn't see it until it was landing.
Exactly. But look, 5 minutes, Seamie turned it on 1-1 and then created that goal out of nowhere. So for me, Seamie was quiet in the first half, was actually quiet.
Well, he got no ball.
Got very little ball, yeah. I think he only got the ball in his hand twice in the first half, but for those 5 minutes he turned it on and rammed it home. And look, from there on, obviously Tipp were just cruising home after that.
It was.
Look, brilliant vision, as I said. I don't think anyone else even saw it.
No, that was the thing. It just came across. I was waiting to clock up a point, and now it's in Bubbles and it's a goal before you know it. And then Bubbles did something similar, Cheddar, under the Cusack stand. Some brilliant footwork to get him away from 2 Kilkenny players. And then you're thinking, throw it up, tap it over the bar. No, that's not good enough for Bubbles. He sends a rocket of a pass across to Jason Ford, who puts it over the bar. That was just top class hurling, Cheddar.
It was. But put it in context as well. When you're that far ahead in the game, these things happen. First of all, they're absolute quality players.
But were they that far ahead when that Callanan pass?
They were. Look. I think Tipperary were in the driving seat at that stage, and tails were up at that stage.
Yeah, tails were definitely up.
And players tried that. The man beside me is well capable of doing all of those things as well. So I put a little bit of that in the context, and then look, I flip that on its head as well, and I'd say for the first 15 or 20 minutes we didn't see that, but we certainly did see a style of hurling from Tipperary even earlier on, in terms of how they were trying to use the ball and work the ball up the sides, and then maybe diagonal ball across field space, and how they created that space. That was evident earlier on, and I thought even in the first 20 minutes when maybe Kilkenny were maybe on the front foot and were probably in control of the game to a small extent, Tipp's use of the ball in that 15-20 minutes was still better than Kilkenny's. And I suppose, if you were just to take those as signs as what was to come, well, look, that's what turned out in the end, I think.
Yeah. The big talking point, obviously, is the red card. I don't think it had any bearing on the game. I think the tide was starting to turn at that stage. It definitely didn't help it, because Kilkenny had no attacking game plan. Again, we'll talk about that in part 2. Are we all going to be in agreement that it was a stonewall red card? You're not going to agree.
No, look.
In real time, I'd say no, but the ref got it right. The linesman was right beside. He saw it and he made the call, right?
Yeah, look, letter of the law, red card. I'm going to definitely admit that, but I think 82,000 people were there yesterday didn't think a red was going to be shown initially, as you said. Like, then I saw a picture back in a close-up, and I know it still is different. Like, Richie's elbow was up and he did catch him on the side of the jaw, but like, I looked at it so many times, you know, with the naked eye, and you could see he just about clipped him, but you didn't realise to what extent.
But the linesman obviously saw it.
Yeah,
so like, he made the
boys
call,
had
and it was the right call.
They had a big talk, and it looked to me that they really didn't want to send him off.
Well, I'd say they didn't.
Yeah, and I just felt, and this is my issue. Like, this is again, they're worried about the assessor's report. You know, will he be vilified? You know, when they have their debrief with whoever, Dickie Murphy or whoever's in charge of that, or that, you know, will they actually be docked for not sending him off? And I think that had a big bearing on whether he sent him off or not. I think a lot of other referees down through the years would have just given a yellow card and moved on.
Right. What do you think, Cheddar?
Look, first of all, I was disappointed that there wasn't more video shots of the incident. I think there was only 2, and there must be 20 or 30 cameras in Croke Park yesterday. So I'm surprised there wasn't others, because I know there was a person actually sitting beside me, and after about 5 minutes showed me just a video snip of it, and it didn't look like he made contact, but all of the other ones were clearly showing that contact was made. And it comes back to the argument, I suppose, Willie, we've had a number of times here. Do you referee by rules or by, you know, what people would like to see? And, you know, we've got to stick with the rules. And there's some other issues around that as well. But let's just work on that one for a minute. Because otherwise in that, you're leaving a massive scope of interpretation to referees. You're going to have one referee who will referee it one way and somebody else another way. And then we're giving out then that there's inconsistency in refereeing. And I think there's just a couple of other issues in that. One of them being that, you know, earlier on, I think Cahill might have clipped
Richie. He did.
Look, all hurling people know that was innocuous. It happened, and he was caught on it, and so on. And I'd say, you know, Richie saw an opportunity to drive into him and get retribution back. But there's a most important issue here. It's above the shoulder. There's been a number of times we've seen, you know, lots of blows to the head over the years, and I'm going back a number of years here, which were absolute savagery, and how people didn't suffer serious injuries from them, I don't know. But we've got to be very, very careful for our players. And, you know, medical people came onto the field yesterday, and you've got to give them time to assess players. And sometimes you've got to save players from themselves, particularly hurlers, because generally speaking, to get up. But the last point I'd like to make, I just thought Cahill made a little bit too much about it as well, to be honest about you. And I just thought he would be a little bit dissatisfied himself. With himself this morning. I think somebody else mentioned about simulation and that in hurling, and there was a little bit of that in it. I just thought he should have bounced back up again after it. You know, it wouldn't have changed the decision. It certainly was a red card in my view, based on the video snaps that we have seen. And look, it changed the course of the game to a certain extent, but I think the course of the game had been changing a little bit before that anyway. It certainly wasn't the game changer that some people are saying.
Yeah.
Just for me, it's the grey area around the rule, though. To say any contact to the head, it's a straight red. Yeah. And then, you know,
this was an elbow to the head.
I know that, but like later on, then Jason Ford, you know, high tackle on Owen Murphy. I know Owen Murphy kind of dipped into it a little bit, but you know, so this is why I'm saying it's a bit of a grey area. So you touch the helmet at all, are you off, or what is the story? Like, obviously Jason Ford's wasn't sending off either. You know, like no. he didn't even get a card, but and rightly so.
But I think that, Brian, there was a little bit more intention in that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I'm just saying, you know, you talk about rules, like, you know, if we want to apply them, then it's black and white. Well, it's not. Like,
when you take the emotion out of it, and the like for Richie Hogan, who's a great player, it's a straight red card, and this is you have to be very simple about this. And like Jackie Terrell said last night, I was reading, you just feel a bit bad for Richie. Could you take it in the spirit of an All-Ireland? I know maybe that's technically a red card, but Richie's not a dirty hurler, so that's all irrelevant. Like, I mean, like you saw Owens, he didn't want to send him off, and that's purely because he didn't want to ruin the game, and that, you know, Richie's not like that. But Richie did go to get retribution, and he went to take Barrett out. Now, Richie didn't mean to do an elbow, because I've done this in football as well. When you go to take a lad out and you don't get the connect that you want, sometimes you might leave your elbow out to maybe get something on him, and Barrett was bending down. Now, there's no question that I think Richie tried to elbow him in the side of the head. He didn't, but he did. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's very unfortunate, but it's a red.
I think it's a very valid point. I think anyone that's played hurling football know that. Cathal Barrett was a sitting duck on the sideline.
Yeah.
You're going as hard as you can, and Cathal Barrett's quick feet
Moved them out of the way.
Yeah, Other than that, it was a shoulder short. And as you said, your elbow does come up, and it's just the way you're trying to generate force to try and shoulder.
That's it.
It's not that you're leading with a high elbow.
No.
I think there's a
And
big
Henry
difference
tried
there.
to make that point on the actual Sunday game yesterday on the half time, because I went in to listen to it, and he was making a point. It wasn't a frontal elbow, it was he caught him kind of with the forearm as he's going by, and that's as the natural elbow will go up after. But it doesn't change the fact that he did catch him, and we can make all those points. The sending off was the right decision in my eyes, but then I'm not a hurling person, so no one's going to take my opinion on it.
I think, Willie, look, there's a human element in it as well. Richie Hogan has gone through a huge amount of injuries over the last couple of years, and was actually, had his knee strapped going out in the field and that. And every hurling person feels for him, and certainly feels for him this morning. Has given a huge amount of entertainment to all of us over the years, and has been simply a brilliant player. But we can't sort of judge in the grey area here. I know what Brian is saying, and I fully agree with that, but yesterday there was a little bit more than that. I thought it was a little bit clearer than that. I think we all really fell for him, but we've got to have some sort of rules to go with. And look, the referees have a tough enough job, and I think yesterday he probably did make the right decision. It is a very tough call, and I don't disagree with what Brian Cody said as well. I took a little time to look at it. It might bring in something else, Wooly, that might be interested in looking at that. You may very well be able to give somebody a red card in that period, a temporary red card, until somebody in upstairs gets a look at it and look if there was no contact made, or if it's quite clearly not a red card. And I mean, it would need to be very clear. Well, then maybe allow somebody back on the field or something like that. I don't know.
But you're going into VAR
can
then,
they not
and
just flash it on the big screen and give the referee an opportunity?
Well, that's it. It's actually disgraceful that you pay €90 and you can't see a replay of an incident.
I agree with that, and I saw that point made this morning as well.
It's terrible.
It's very bad.
I disagree with that, guys. I disagree with that for hurling. Absolutely disagree with this for hurling, lads. I think that'd be fine for football or something else. There are unintentional blows that can happen in hurling that you just don't want to be shown to 80,000 people, guys, I think. And I probably would disagree with that. I'm not too sure that there's a better way of doing it.
But there's even innocuous challenges and they won't show a replay. They show a replay of hardly anything outside of a goal.
And you're paying your €90, you said, to go to an Ireland or whatever.
And you're coming out of the match,
and you don't know what's happened.
Yeah.
You're trying, obviously your social media or nothing will work with your phone, because the phone lines are jammed or whatever, so you can't actually get it up on your phone to see what's happened either. So
no, it's beyond frustrating that you're at the match and you're not sure what's happened.
And you're trying to text home to someone what happened there,
Yeah, no, it's true. Did you see Cody and Sheedy going at it on 70 minutes? You would have got a good view of that, Brian. You were just in front of me.
Look, I think what happened there was Sheedy was really animated.
Cody was in on the field.
Yeah, but it was Sheedy was like, they were going down the home stretch. They had it won, but he was driving it, and he was jumping and leaping, and he was down like kind of in a sumo squat for a long time as well. He was obviously massively invested in it. And Cody didn't like it, and they had words now. They had now they didn't get up in each other's face, and like a lot of people, the play was still going on. A lot of people, as you mightn't have seen it. I'm glad you copped it, but I'd say Cody didn't like the carry on. But look, they went over and shook hands after. It's part of the sport.
But it was actually funny because I was watching them, because there was 3 minutes announced, and that's when it caught my eye that they were mouthing at each other, and I didn't cop how it started. And then I went, I wonder will they shake hands, because it was weird. Cody was 5 yards in on the field. I'd never seen that before, and no one had the balls to tell him to get off. Nobody was telling him. No, he was just left there in on the field, and it was a bit bizarre. And so then when the final whistle went, Sheedy called over Tommy Dunn, Darry Egan, and Eamon O'Shea was down a little bit, and they all hugged. And Cody walked out in the field a little bit, and he was looking over. And then I was thinking, will Cody give up now and tell him? And then Sheedy, after the hug, walked out in the field, congratulated a player or two. Now, he still hadn't entertained Cody at this stage. And Cody walked down and followed him.
He had to chase him. That's
right.
Him.
So
he
actually followed Sheedy, hugged 2 or 3 players, and then Sheedy turned around and noticed him. And it wasn't a big embrace now. It was a quick handshake and then good luck. But I thought that was a big mark of Cody, after having words with him, losing an All-Ireland final, Cheddar, and actually being the incredibly successful manager he was, and he still followed Sheedy around.
I think we should make a little bit too much of that. Look, they're very emotional times, and after winning an All-Ireland, what do you expect? I suppose Liam Sheedy to be like. Of course, he's going to be emotional after that. And probably on the sideline you're pent up for a long time, and suddenly you've won, particularly in the way that they have won. So I wouldn't read too much into it, and I think it is a mark of Brian Cody. He has always been like that on the field. Why are we surprised about something like that? He's just simply doing what he's been doing for 20 years, and he's simply a gentleman on the field and off of it. And I wouldn't just simply expect anything else. And I know Brian himself wouldn't expect anything else either.
Yeah, any credit even for that. What's the story with Kilkenny when they lose finals, Brian? When they lose finals, they get hammered. Outside of 99, they've lost them in 04 to Cork, they've lost to the Tipp in 2010, Tipp in 16, now Tipp in 19, and they've been bet out the gate in all of those matches.
Yeah, when they ran away from, look, I think yesterday though, obviously the sending off had a big bearing on that, and the extra man Tipp used it so well, and the game ran away from Kilkenny very, very quickly, and launching this long high ball as Sir Let's nuts to monkeys, so it just wasn't going to work at all. And Tipp, the space they were able to create up front, the way they were spraying the ball around, and they put them to the sword very quickly. So look, I don't know, I think that's just sometimes the way games can go. I don't read much into that now.
It's a weird stat without having a reason for
it.
Yeah. Because they've turned around losing positions against Galway, Cheddar. It's not like when it goes against them they can't come back, or Cody can't rescue it. I was half thinking, can you make a case for that? And then you're thinking of finals where they turned a losing situation around. So that's not even, it's just
I think some matches though it does make a difference. Only like the way Tipp play, and the way to create space and that, having an extra body or not having an extra player with you will cause you problems. And Kenny wanted to play in the face yesterday, and wanted to be very intensive right throughout the match, and just having that, having a player less to do that, in other words having a position vacant as such, was always going to hurt them. Look, there was other reasons as well, we might talk about it later on, but sometimes it's just the context of the game, the way the game goes, and particularly the opposition. Tipperary have probably the most skillful set of players on any team around at the minute, and you give them space to play and they will really hurt you. They won't even give you the ball, so once they have that space to play, then it looks like that they're so far ahead of the other team. But it is a bit unusual, and I think Tipperary could have put another couple of points on the board yesterday, and could have put another maybe goal or two on the board yesterday as well, that might have made the final score line look even worse. Yeah,
and it's a gas stat now. Since 2009 it's 3-3 and a draw between Tipp and Kilkenny, and Kilkenny had the vast upper hand on all those meetings, but in finals it's 3-3 and a draw, which is incredible for in an era. And Sheedy made some comment about, instead of Tipperary fans always going back to the 60s now, how about talking about this decade? Who's put it up to Kilkenny?
The weird one in the build-up I found was that Tipperary wiped the floor with Kilkenny in 2016. Seamie went to town, he got 9 points in play, and Bubbles and John McGraw all went down. They cleaned them out that day. But the build up to the game was very much like, Kilkenny are going to dog Tipperary out of it. It was kind of like it was like, Tipperary were being the hunters. When it was it was the other way around. On Tipp, they really thrive on backing themselves and being confident type of hurlers. And I think obviously Sheedy and Eamon O'Shea had no small part in that as well. The confidence in those players, you could see that
to tap into that, definitely. What about Hawkeye, lads? Because this is getting beyond the joke now. We were joking when Hogan picked that over the bar. We went kind of just laughing about, imagine Hawkeye came again, and all of a sudden then Owens blows up the lads, is this a glitch in Hawkeye? Because that didn't look over it again, no more than the other one. Is Hawkeye able to identify ones over the bar? And another thing, if you have a goalie that's 6'5" that's able to catch it over the bar, should you not say that's not a point? He's just done something that's really, really difficult to, to do. Should Hawkeye be taken out of that if you're able to catch it over the bar, you'll never catch it that far over the bar?
I was chatting to Ken Hogan after, he's the father of Brian, and he said he was chatting to Brian after, and Brian's absolutely convinced he had no way it was over the bar. And he was actually questioning, now I don't know what the truth is, but he was just questioning, was he wondering if because his fist hit off the crossbars or something, tipping it off or something, so it was a strange one. My issue, and it was the same, we had this point the last time, we don't get to see the proper camera angle.
If his fist hit the crossbar, well then it couldn't have gone over, could it?
No,
unless it was the way down, on the way back down.
That's what I'm saying. And the rule is supposed to be the whole ball has to be over and all that. So it's a grey area again.
Yeah, no, definitely. And he went up with the stick then for the next one. Did you see that? I'm not taking.
He had the time though. He had the time to do that in the second half, because he could obviously quick look. He could see that there was no one bearing down top of him, so he was able to put the hurl up instead.
Right. What do you think, Cheddar?
No, I thought yesterday it didn't look it. I thought the one a week ago did look at. I think I think he said that last night himself. I think Brian said that last night himself, that his hand did, or his wrist did touch the crossbar in the semi-final, and it starts to suggest that if your hands is back, that you've caught the ball somewhat over the bar. But yesterday certainly didn't look it. He actually looked to be maybe a foot in front of the goal when he was actually jumping for it, so it just didn't look it. But and I don't know that the technical, how it works technically and that, but I'm assuming that it's it's fairly robust way of measuring whether the ball went over the bar or not. And maybe no harm actually if the GAA come out and actually explain that.
I think they need to.
Yeah, I agree.
But the weird thing is when it shows up on the big screen is that it shows as if the ball's after going about 3 foot.
Oh yeah, way over
the bar. It's like
yeah.
no, that clearly didn't happen.
That's why you wonder, is it a glitch or not? Or is it just not able to do that? We've asked the GAA for confirmation about that. We haven't got the information back before we came on air.
Am I right in the semi-final that it did show that it did show the hand sort of going over the bar as such?
No, we didn't really get a conclusive camera angle of that either. But just before we get into Seamie here, he was actually pulled down for a penalty in the first half, and that was a bizarre decision, lads. That was a cop-out by Owens, wasn't it? Certain penalty.
No doubt about it.
But where was he thinking that this wasn't a penalty? It's an impossible call.
Yeah, no, to me now, look, it was amazing build-up as well, because Seamie, I think it was John McGrath was bearing down on goal or someone, and Seamie took it off him. He rose it up and caught it and went forward, and clearly fouled within the large parallelogram. For me, definite penalty, but for some reason he gave the free instead.
Yeah, it's a weird one, Cheddar. Obviously it didn't have a bearing on the game the way it turned out, but at that time Tipp were 4-1 down.
No, it certainly looked a penalty, and look, it was pretty clear cut. I don't think there was any issues around that. So I think that should have been a penalty. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, I was out in the Clayton Hotel and we're talking about Seamie Callanan. I caught up with him, who's actually an absolutely huge man. He must be 6'4". I can't get over how 6'5". Christ Almighty! And he got a goal in every game this year, and here that is. Seamie, how's the head today?
Good, yeah, good. I suppose last night was just complete excitement, and he wanted to soak in every moment, so he didn't want to miss the trick. So look, it's great. It's a great place to be waking up this morning.
Yeah, is that how you're getting a little bit older now? You're able to sit back and enjoy these days rather than going mental. You look fresh.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you kind of, I suppose when you come to this stage of your career, you're savouring the moment really, and you're trying to make sure you remember everything, I suppose, to have those memories for your lifetime.
Are you saying you remember nothing of the other two?
Not really, no.
What's your memories of the game anyways? It was in the first half, it looked like you were in trouble.
Yeah, and they went, I think it was 8 points to 5 up there at one stage, and they were doing an awful lot of hurling, and I suppose the conditions then were very poor as well for periods of the first half, but we kind of just, we tipped away. We got a few frees, I think, that kept us in the game when we weren't really in our flow and hurling, so it just kept us in the game. And I suppose, look, the sending off then was unfortunate then as well, but that's, I suppose, all we could do at that stage was just stick to our process and kick on again, so.
But you were starved of possession for the first 20 minutes nearly. Are you thinking when is this going to turn around?
Yeah, definitely. I think we weren't using the ball the way we wanted to use it, or the way we had planned to use the ball. And I suppose it's probably down to the pressure the Kilkenny boys were putting on our backs too, to be fair. So, but I suppose we just had to stick to it, and I suppose the first 10 minutes of the second half kind of showed when we worked the ball quicker. We kind of blitzed in there, I suppose. But that's it. We kind of, our play, we carried a lot of ball really when maybe we should have been trying to move it quicker.
But the second half was a complete contrast then. You were getting a load of ball in under the Cusack stand, breaking out there, and it was just a different game altogether.
Yeah, it was probably 10 minutes into the second half there, my tongue was out of it, I was getting so much ball.
Enough ball,
I was giving out about in the first half, and when I was getting it then, look, that's the way games ebb and flow too, look, we were just delighted, I suppose, that we were able to kick on, and we made a good start to the second half, and we were able to kick on from there, so.
What was said at half time then? Because the man had gone down, but that had worked against Wexford, against G.
Yeah, and you know what, that was kind of something that I suppose we learned ourselves really, that we knew what that brought out of us in the semi-final when we were a man down, so we knew that same thing could happen for Kilkenny and actually work in their favour, so we were very conscious of that at half time. But look, thankfully, as I said, we got a good start in the first 5 minutes was the second half, and we never looked back from there.
Yeah, 2 pieces of skill. The goal, obviously, you've scored a goal in every game. I backed you for any time goal scorer just to round it off. You must be delighted with that. That's never been done.
Yeah, it's not something that I'd look at or I'd be conscious of was it ever done or not, but look, yeah,
you did an extra jump for that goal now, didn't you?
Yeah, well, look, it's All Ireland final day, so
true.
Yeah, but look, sure, any time you get him, it's it's huge, and obviously they're a massive scorer in the game, but look, sure, personally you'd be delighted as well to get him, and But look, as I said, anything we can do to contribute to Tipperary victory, you know, that's the special part of it.
Surely you'll win Player of the Year this year now.
I don't know. That's I don't know. It's not my destiny, I'd say, at this stage. But look, we're after having a great year anyway, no matter what happens from now on. So it's been great.
But you'll be really pissed off this time. Whatever.
I wouldn't begrudge any of the Tipperary boys anyway.
So we were finally the ball to Bubbles. That was champagne stuff at that stage, because there was a point on there for you, Seamie, and you chose not to take it. You'd gone around Hugh at that stage and you just bulleted one across the Bubbles, and that finished the game off completely. Yeah, so I suppose one of our things would be to make the best decision and give the ball to the man in the best position at all times. So if Bubbles Dwyer is free inside around the edge of the square, you give him the ball, and that's the same. If I was inside there, he'd give it to me as well. And that's the way we operate. And I suppose you have to try and be that bit ruthless there. And look, thankfully it worked out, but you have to really go for it in these games. Yeah, because he did something similar with Jason Ford then. He had a point on, he had gone past two fellas and stuck a bullet of a pass across the goal as well. Those kind of passes are great to watch. Yeah, well they are, because look, the likes of Bubbles there, Jason, these guys, they're exceptional talents. So if they get into positions and they see it, their vision is unbelievable as well. These lads are so good that if there's a half a goal chance on, they're going to go for it. They're going to try and work it. And that's I suppose, at this level, and on Ireland finally, that's what you want to be doing. Yeah, come here, I won't annoy you any longer. You're off to Crumlin's Children's Hospital. What's the plan for the day? So going in there, we're there again, I suppose, in 10 and 16, and it's a wonderful morning, and it's great to be able to go in there and to meet all the kids, and I suppose to put a smile on their face for a while, and you know what I mean. So we're really looking forward to that, and then to be back to Thurles. I think there'll probably be a homecoming in Semple Stadium, and then back out to my own parish, Drummond tonight. Great stuff. So back to work next week or 2 weeks time, is it? We'll take this week off, and we'll deal with it after that. Thanks a lot, Seamie. No, thanks a million. Talking about Seamie Callanan, lads, and all his goals, and his goal was a really important one because it was a draw match at that stage, and Kilkenny just got the first point of the second half, and he got that goal exactly when it was needed. Set up Bubbles' goal, like you said, Brian. When your captain is needed, he did it, and then that was easy streets from then on. But let's start with the first half. It was all going according to plan for Kilkenny, really, wasn't it? They were squeezing the life out of the game, almost like Limerick. They were all over the breaks. They were all over Tipperary. It was a wet day. Tipperary were making mistakes, and Kilkenny were just grinding them down. And you're almost like, this is a game Tipp don't want to be in, and Kilkenny do want to be in. And John Donnelly, a fine game now, fine 70 minutes. In first half, himself and TJ Reid really foraging back in the half-back line, was working really well. Walter Walsh was causing a little bit of damage, but there was a key switch there. Obviously, Pádraig Marby moved over to him and caught the very first ball then as well that came down between them, and it gave Seamus Kennedy a new lease of life as well. He ended up popping up the field and getting a couple of points. It looked to all intents and purposes like it was going the way Kilkenny wanted it, but some very professional and very important fouling by Tipperary stopped a couple of real goal scoring opportunities. And Kilkenny then obviously tapped the ball over the bar for points, and if they had got one of those, it could have been a completely different bearing on particularly obviously in the first half. But we have to talk about John McGrath's hook. After 2 minutes, phenomenal. You expected that with the backs. The big one we always talk about was probably JJ's one and Seamie Callanan, a few years 14. Ago. But John McGrath to even find himself in that position, the ground he made up, and a fantastic hook in fairness, because you were just waiting for the net to billow. You were. It's John McGrath started wing forward. They made a good few changes up front. John McGrath went wing forward. Niall Amaro went to centre forward. Ford went into the corner, and Bubbles went in at full forward. Now Ford came out and left Bubbles and Seamie in on their own. Now that didn't work. Bubbles ended up coming back out, Cheddar, because they were completely starved of possession because Kilkenny had dominated the first 20 minutes of the game. Yes, but actually, I don't think it was just a reactionary move. Willie, they moved pretty regular, particularly at 11. They kept changing players at 11, and I think it might confuse the Kilkenny defence a little bit. It just wasn't a reaction to something. Although they did change, Tommy Dunn was in the field an awful lot and made a lot of changes, including the one that Brian was saying there. But I think that was one of the things that served Tipp well, particularly in the forwards. They moved some players around the field just after certain plays. So that was just something they'd pre-planned, but equally they did it strategically as well. They did move some players to different positions, and all of them worked for them and brought the
their players back into the game, I think, in the forward line.
Yeah, Kilkenny, just looking at them in the flesh, especially in the first half, they're a pretty defensive team, Brian. Like, it wasn't too far off Wexford. Like, I mean, Richie Hogan and Mullen, you'll find out in the half-forward line tackling. Colin Fennelly inside, the only man left inside the 45 with acres of space, and they're squeezing that middle third. That's
but
Wexford.
This is the way Kilkenny have hurled for all the time
But
under Brian Cody. But Owen
out?
Larkin in particular would have been renowned for that. You know, foraging back, Shefflin if he was at centre forward, hunting back into that, and the midfielders tend to sit back. Now they will drive forward, obviously. Like they've always been capable of putting big scores up, but that has always tended to be their way of playing the game. And we discussed this. I think this is what they did against Cork in particular. They went back to being Kilkenny. You know, we talked about Conor Fogarty dropping back, narrowing that space that Cork got in the initial first 5 or 10 minutes. And I think that was the time that we saw Kilkenny go back to being themselves. Whereas I found in the Leinster final, it was completely dictated by Wexford, and they went almost very un-Kilkenny-like, and they went whatever man for man and left huge gaps. So I thought that's what Kilkenny tried to do for large periods of that game. And you know, I've heard a lot of people say it, and I've slipped into it myself. Oh, it looked like Tipp were going to win that game. You just never know. It was such a tight game in that first half. I know the weather had a big effect on that, and I appreciate the Niall O'Mara's game changed. The way Tipperary started to hurl, you could see the belief starting to come back into them. But at the same time, there was a point in it at half time. If there had been 15 against 15, it was the way Kilkenny wanted it. It was a dogfight. So you just never know what way it went.
No, you never know. But it definitely is hard to know. But we talked about this last week, what the Kilkenny half back line would do. But for the Kilkenny puckouts, the Tipperary half forward line foraged on into midfield, and not one of the three Cheddar was following on after for puckouts. They seemed to be following them in general play, but for puckouts, the other Kilkenny forwards came out, met them, and Colin Fennelly was left on his own inside. It was funny watching that.
Yeah, no, there was some really interesting thing on the plays, I suppose. Look, when you pull out your half forward line, that gives an opportunity then to the opposition half back line. We spoke about this last week here, of really sprinting forward with the ball in your hand, and you know you could see Tipp half backs doing it some of the times, coming up the field. They've already gained 20 metres on you. They're in scoring area, and particularly Tipperary. You know, one 30-metre ping pass to the hand, and somebody's in scoring area. I mean, I think they score something like 30 or 40% of their scores outside of their own 65, outside of the 65. Some of it outside midfield, and they have that range. And I just think that, look, it's very surprising about Kilkenny. I mean, we spoke about Colin Fennelly, and I've seen Kilkenny hurl almost all their games this year, and it's surprising some of the times that they don't clear more space in front of Colin and make plays in front of him that he can actually win, and then feed to win running forwards, and that they always seem to. It's always a competitive ball that they seem to play into Colin, and he's got to wrestle with a back and maybe a corner back coming in and tap him as well. They don't seem to link up that play and open up the space as much. Clearly, there was very, very different way of playing by Kilkenny yesterday than Tipperary, and that, Brian may very well be right. That's just because Tipperary had the tails up at that stage and it was working for them. But even I think, Brian, in the first 15-20 minutes, even though Kilkenny were outscoring them, and bear in mind Kilkenny missed some shots at that stage. I mean, Walter missed a poor point, maybe missed a goal as well.
Definitely missed a goal.
Yeah. He hesitated there. He actually got a very soft free that time. He hesitated and came back.
We spoke about this off air. Yeah, like Walter, to me, had a certain goal scoring opportunity if he had more trust in his left hand side. He came back inside and got a very dubious free, and then, as you said, he got another chance where he showed great pace for a big man and had a poor wide on his left hand side, so he should have had a little bit more. Certainly,
And I know there could have been a little bit more further ahead, is the point, Brian, that you were making earlier on. I mean, Richie missed a point as well.
Very easy one, yeah.
He'd score in his sleep. But even during that play, I just thought that Tipperary's use of the ball and the way they were able to change the direction of the ball was still evident then, and they were clearing the 15, they were clearing a lot of space at the old 15 spot, and allowing Seamie to run into that. It might not work for them, but it was going to work for them as the game went on. And the other thing that I thought was significant was that they're picking the pass through the lines, and particularly to hand in the middle third was far better than Kilkenny's. So they were going to retain possession and not give it away. And of course, once they went the extra man, that really told at that stage. Yeah,
it's interesting with Colin Fennelly in that he can bully certain players. He couldn't bully Mara, and after that, then he was a little bit one-dimensional. Like I don't want to keep bringing in football analogies, but like, I mean, if you start the game and you pass one or two off and then you take on your man, you'll get much more joy than if you take him on the first 3 times because he's waiting for, you know what I mean? I think Fennelly just tries to take him on too, and not just take him on, bulldoze past him.
Yeah.
You won't do that with Ronan Maher.
No, you certainly won't. And look, Ronan Maher going to full back has cemented that Tipperary defence. He did in the All-Ireland semi-final, obviously, against Wexford, and I thought he was excellent again yesterday. But, like, because I wrote it down, obviously, doing the analysis yesterday, in the 42nd minute, like, I know it was after the 2 goals going in for Tipp, but Kilkenny started to launch ball, you know, so it was a long way out to start going with desperation hurling, you know. It's just launching high ball after high ball after high ball, and at one stage they had TJ, Colm Fennelly and Walter Walsh just camped in around the 21. I was like, they're not going to get it, especially because Tipperary had the sweeper there, you know. They had the extra man, Colm Barrett was picking up, so the boys were, in fairness to Tipp lads, they were either catching it themselves or they were breaking it down, holding off the man as you expect, and Barrett was sweeping in and around, and they won any of that breaking ball around there, and there was no way they were going to work. It was going to take something extraordinary to work a goal in that situation.
And even not even that, like, the odd ball would go in high when TJ went in there, and when Colm Barrett went off, Paddy Maher went with the sweeper, so the 2 Mahers were on TJ when he went in. He'd no chance.
But and still, in fairness, he snapped
still
one
tried,
or two.
He was. I thought TJ was brilliant. Some of the things he did yesterday were brilliant. But it was even incredible, Cheddar, how much ball they actually hit straight to Barrett, not even over him to get for him to get the break, just straight onto him.
Paddy Deegan had a fantastic game. You know, massive effort from him. But you'd say the final distribution was poor at times, and actually Paddy's quite good at that. When Paddy's hurling, his head's always open. He's trying to pick the pass through the lines. But you know, they just hit balls to the spare man. And it's been a little bit, I suppose, as I said earlier on, I've seen Kilkenny play a good bit, and you know, their variation of how to distribute the ball up the field, and you know, we're talking about Kilkenny here, they're the masters of hurling and have been doing this for years, but just simply this year, their variation on how they work the ball up the field, particularly the hand, probably told against them yesterday, and they didn't have it. And I agree with Brian, you know, okay, you might have said, well, look, the sweeper's out in the end of the deal, let's clear the sweeper and put it in high over his head and take him out of the game, but he just needs to step back, you know, 5 metres, put the ball to the floor, mop it up and take it back out again. And I think at that level you probably just need to have, you know, much different ways of playing. And if you look at Tipperary, sometimes they work the ball out of the defence. I mean, I said earlier on, you know, Noah McGrath taking 3 or 4 puck outs on his own 20. His next was maybe a 30-metre hurley pass to somebody maybe in the half-back line, might have drilled it to somebody free in the middle of the field, and they pinged it over the bar. That type of hurling, you know, Kilkenny needed to vary, I suppose, what they were doing to, you know, to force Tipperary out of just a safe way of playing in the square. You can just pack your defence, knock the ball on the floor, jump on it and work it out the field, and look, you're not going to score goals. And I just thought at the time, very unlike Kilkenny, they were 8 or 9 points down, but that's not a lot in hurling, particularly to good teams. And I thought they had chances to knock over points that could have brought it back to 4 or 5 and worry Tipperary a little bit, and you know, maybe a goal goes in then and it's a different game. Whereas they went for the juggler, they went for goals really early on, I thought, and I didn't think that they needed to.
Yeah,
I don't think this was unlike Kilkenny, because we actually saw this happen in the Leinster final as well.
That's true.
When it got into the melting pot, you know, they inexplicably went for goals instead of tipping over their points, and it showed that they got enough opportunities to draw the game that day. So I think Kilkenny went back to their usual way of hurling that they've done for the last decade or so, and obviously they were hugely successful. And look, I've also hurled on teams, I'm sure you have as well, Cheddar, where you know, you have big men inside and you know they can win ball, and as I said, it becomes desperation hurling, and the guys inside were probably just as culpable in that they weren't moving, you know. They weren't creating
they were calling for the long ones.
Calling for that's what I'm saying, where the 3 boys came in and they were, you know, getting camped in there, so their movement inside wasn't good either. And look, as I said, the game probably had gone away from anyway, but Cheddar's 100% right. They needed to move the ball through the lines, try and pick points from, you know, 40-50 metres out, and get 2 or 3 in quick succession and get it back in, get the crowd behind you again and get it back into a battle. Whereas in fairness to Tipperary, they kept it at that 7, 8, 9 points. It's just, you can't break that out. They
answered every Kilkenny point with a point of their own. You know, Kilkenny never got 2 or 3 to at least make it look, or it didn't seem to.
But this is the point I'm making, the Willie, that I just thought in all of the games this year that they didn't really vary that, you know, an awful lot. That the winning of the ball off the half-back line or the midfield, that next shot, you know, invariably is it going into a competitive ball. And Brian, you make the point about players' movement and that, but if that's the way you're normally used to playing and you're not practicing that in training and so on, well, look, it's not going to happen on the day. You cannot switch that on, you know, 20 minutes from the end of an All-Ireland or something like that. So I just think, look, it's something, you know, who are we to tell anybody from Kilkenny, you know, in terms of the little tweaks that they might look at or whatever. But I think they definitely have the hurlers to play that game. And I'm just going back to that Colin Fennelly, full forward. He's the ideal player to play off of that type of ball. Leave space around him. He's very, very quick. He's an incredible man at securing that type of possession and then have movement coming off of that. Brian just mentioned a minute ago, I just didn't think that the Kilkenny players worked hard enough to create space to put ball into, to really drag Tipp defence around the place. It's easy for defence to play up and down the field, particularly with the quality that they have in their back line. One other little thing that I think set Tipperary, I think the Tipperary defence won the game yesterday. And if I was to look back on the last 2 or 3 months, and I've seen Tipp play a couple of times as well, I suppose it's the security of their defence, and certainly when they brought back some players, I'm just thinking of Barry Heffernan in particular. I've seen him play a couple of times last year, a wing back, and whereas he was a nice stick man and played nicely, he's a much more aggressive, harder hurler this year, and was in the semi-final as well. And bear in mind, some of these have only just got their place since the semi-final. But what I really liked about him yesterday, when they won the ball, they were sprinting out of the defence. They were like sprinters coming out with the ball out of the defence, and they'd have a couple of options in terms of popping the pass to somebody coming out as well. I don't know how many times Pádraig Mara came out, just give a hand pass to somebody, and that next pass was a real telling one. Oftentimes, led to a long range score, and they just had that ability to do that. And look, the extra man did play a part in that. But I just think that Tipp's defence were a very different type of defence and playing in a very different way than they have for the last couple of months.
Yeah, and obviously the Tipp defence were defending predictable high ball, and the Kilkenny defence had to deal with good ball. And the obvious thing, like Seamie Callanan, like when Noel McGrath or John McGrath get on it, it's going down into that corner, right? Yeah. And Seamie Callanan's going out to it. And Kilkenny had no plan like that, but Tipperary seems so obvious. A 2-man full forward line and give Seamie plenty of room on one side. He's been doing this since 2014. He's done it to JJ. He cleaned out Joey Holden, who didn't mark him ever again, even though Holden did all right on bubbles. But it's obvious what Tipp are doing. They're trying to hit that space either side of Callanan, and they're looking for their leader to work off him. And
Tipp did it really well. Instead of obviously bringing out a third midfielder or an extra defender, whoever that other corner forward was, sometimes it was John McGrath, as Cheddar said, sometimes it was Jason Ford. They came out around the D and tried to clog up Pádraig Walsh, because you expect Pádraig to sit into the pocket. Niall O'Mara was running everywhere, trying to keep Pádraig Walsh kind of thinking as well. So they were really creating, they were making Kilkenny think, and while at the same time creating that space inside. And I think Cheddar's right, it didn't really work in the first half, but the conditions got to do with that, and the work rate of the Kilkenny forwards obviously filtering back, and they didn't allow good ball to go in, only occasionally. But obviously when the floodgates opened up, you could see their movement inside is top class. Like, it'd be an absolute joy to hurl in that.
Oh, it would, and it's very hard to stop them when they get in that groove.
Yeah, and here's one other point to that. We're just speaking about defenders. When you have that mobility in the forward line, you generally speaking don't have 2 or 3 backs in the play area or where the ball is to offer support to the man in possession to come off the shoulder and that, because you're being run around the field. Whereas when you knock the ball long and just straight up the lines, it's easy to defend, it's easy to swarm that ball coming down and have, support players coming off the shoulder, which is what Tipperary had. You put the ball down the throat, that's what you'll see. If the defence are on top, they'll be able to take the ball out of the defence, and now they're in possession. And if they've the quality in the hands that Tipp have, they're able to pick the pass to hand up the field, and you look at the amount of points they scored from midfield, long range in the second half. You'd even have back sprinting up the field and lashing balls over the bar.
Yeah, they were very good. We have to talk the Niall O'Mara goal, lads. Jesus, I had to feel sorry for poor Fogarty. He was turned inside out. Yeah. Niall O'Mara reminded me of Stephen O'Brien from Kerry. These lads who do. The minute he had Fogarty turned, Fogarty was in all sorts of trouble, because every time Fogarty turned around to see where he was, he changed his direction. He was on the other side, and it was and then Fogarty looked the other way, and he went 3 times to come back onto his right hand side, and that's not that easy to do as you're running at that full speed, to be watching where he, to be turning him inside and out. That was as good a goal that's been scored in an All-Ireland final, I reckon.
Definitely, and from. It was going to be from someone different as well with Niall. Niall, I've read an amazing stat yesterday. He's only 9 points ever scored in Championship hurling. He'd only a point scored this year, and I'm nearly certain that was in the first round against Cork and Páirc Uí. So it's not like he was bringing a huge scoring threat, but he's obviously bringing something different. His movement, his selflessness. Obviously set up Seamie's goal in the semi-final. But as you said, he turned inside out, and most importantly though, he got back on his favourite right hand side. That was the big thing. Everyone favours one side over the other, and for him to get back on his right side, hit it low into the bottom corner. We've been saying this time and time again. It gives the keeper like very little chance when it goes low, and especially in that greasy surface, because it was really greasy at that stage of the game after the big downpour. So he did exactly what you want from any dangerous forward.
If you're going to be any bit critical, Conor Fogarty, should he have known O'Mara's strong side is his right, and not sell him, not have gone back that have kept his run covering that side at least, Cheddar?
It's all about footwork at that stage. The pace that they're going at. It would take a lot to be able to change the feet that quickly, and look, he could turn on the other side as well and pop a pass or something like that. I just think the game would be going so quickly at that stage, it'd be very, very difficult to change your feet. I think there's a couple of other things, Uli, that's worth discussing as well. Look, the sending off was before half time. So you had a chance to get into the dressing room and rearrange things, and certainly for the puck outs, I was just surprised that Kilkenny went long with a lot of the puck outs. Some of these things are restarts. You have control. When you have control, you're expected to use that to your advantage. And even the puck outs just seem to go along, and that's fine if the send off was second half. You just mightn't have a chance to reorganise things, but they did. And I just think the other thing that I was surprised about, I was expecting Conor Brown to be on Noel McGrath and just simply play in his face and make it very aggressive on him, because he's a tighter marker and a more aggressive player maybe than Killian is. Killian will hurt you with his own hurling and that. And I was surprised with a couple of things. Now look, it's very easy to say that on the sideline. Obviously Kilkenny will have done a huge amount of preparation in that, and they may very well have said, well look, Killian is more athleticism than Noel has, so his athleticism will get the better of Noel eventually. So there's pros and cons for all of these things. But I certainly thought that at half time the Kilkenny puck out would have been used better and just simply not knock it down on top of extra men. Yeah,
and amazingly going into the game, Kilkenny's success rate for puck outs was higher than Tipperary's. It was 65% as opposed to Tipperary 60%. And that obviously comes from the fact that Kilkenny changed it up over the last couple of games. They weren't afraid to go short. They weren't always going long. But I think it dropped to something as low as 30% in yesterday's game. Tipperary wiped the floor with them in terms of their puck out strategy. Brian Hogan went short with a lot of them. They were all retained.
Kilkenny dropped off the full back line.
Yeah.
They were they almost gave him that, and he took it.
Yeah, but
and you can't drop off Ronan O'Mara. He uses the ball too easily or too well. So I don't know why they were doing that.
But to be fair to Tipperary, they did exactly what you want from your players. They hit the touch line. The two cornerbacks hit the sideline. Cottle Barrett was making himself ill, and they were even doing that in the first half.
They were doing that in the first half
in the 15 side, and Kilkenny obviously were trying to have their hurls up and try and narrow space and mark space as opposed to the men themselves. But full credit to Tipperary. They were very disciplined from that perspective, because yourself, Cheddar, you've been a manager and you're trying to coach your players to do it, but to continually do it in the white heat of battle, it's full credit to them. They were switched on all the time.
Brendan Cummins has a stat on those puckouts, Cheddar. I was just about to get to it. So Kilkenny puckouts, when they went down to 14 men, so they hit 2 short puckouts and they won both of them. And they went long 23 times and they only won 5 of them. So you're right, Brian, they were at 28%.
Yeah.
Madness.
Look, it particularly when you had a chance to reorganise it. As I say, look, sometimes these things happen in the second half, or maybe 20 minutes from the end, and everybody's emotional and on the line and everywhere else, and you mightn't just have a chance to reorganise. But at that level, you probably would, you'd need to have all of those things well worked out in advance, and you would work the what ifs. If we're a man down, what happens. So I'm just surprised at that. And look, Kilkenny have the players to play that out through it as well. And I just thought that at that particular time, I take the point because this could have worked the other way when they put TJ inside and put their big players inside and they had to score 2 or 3 goals. Well, look, we'd be talking something differently now. We'll say it was a master stroke. So sometimes this can work the other way. But I just thought at the time there was plenty of time left in the game. They were a man down. They needed to win the middle third and to put some doubt in Tipperary and knock over a couple of points, which they were well capable of doing. And to do that, they needed TJ as the sort of free man around the middle and to pop over those points. And then maybe coming down the straight, bring it down to 4 or 5 points. And as Brian was saying, get the crowd behind you and put a little bit of doubt and tip backs and so on, and then go for it. I just thought they went for a little bit earlier. But actually, Brian is right. In the Leinster final, that was the same thing actually played out. And I suppose I'm saying, Brian, that over the long number of years looking at Kilkenny, it's a little bit untypical for them. They normally get these things really, really right. The timing of putting players in key positions to go for the juggler is nearly always spot on. Whereas just yesterday, I thought they panicked a little bit and went for goals way too early when they didn't need to.
Yeah.
Another young man, obviously, very unfortunate yesterday. Adrian Mullen, obviously there was a lot
Yeah,
of big furore yesterday morning. It broke on Twitter, obviously, that he wasn't going to be playing.
He wasn't right though.
No, he wasn't right. And I feel sorry for him because he's only 19. I hope he was oblivious to everything that was going on prior to the game. In the build up to it. Was he playing? I heard so many different stories about what was wrong with him.
Yeah.
But no, he clearly wasn't right. And look, we've eulogised about him here a few times. He's a brilliant talent, and Kilkenny lost that firepower up front as well because he has the X factor.
Yeah, the Callanan goal, right? So it was a draw match. Did you notice that there was a mix-up between Paul Murphy and Pádraig Walsh? So Paul Murphy had the easiest catch. It was from a Tipperary long ball, and Pádraig Walsh was just in front of him. And I don't know, was the stadium so loud? You'd imagine Paul Murphy would have said, "Leave it, I have it." It was a catch right to his hand at head height, and Walsh went up with his hurl and he knocked it into the pad of John McGrath, or Ford, and then Ford gave it to John McGrath. Surely Murphy called him there, Cheddar, or is it just a case of you can't hear? Yeah.
No,
So Walsh kind of had to put his hurl up for it.
Yeah, he just would have been playing. He there's no way they've heard him.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit of bad luck then for that one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Finish up here with Cody. He's talking about how to use the ball. So obviously he was asked maybe in the press conference about the second half, and he said, "I'd say the use of the ball in the first half was superb when we had a player in every position, but it became very, very difficult in the second half to find the men." I'd take that point as well. They did give some good diagonal balls. I remember one particular one over to Walter Walsh, who caught it and set up. I think someone was dragged down.
Yep.
They were moving it fairly well in the first half. Second half, you can still do that. In fact, you should be given those good diagonal balls even more so when there's a sweeper there, which makes it a little bit a sweeper shouldn't have changed that type of play.
Yeah. And going back to that, I've read the reports of Cody yesterday. Obviously, he wasn't happy in the post-match.
He was tetchy about the sending off, I think.
So look, I understand that, but people are entitled to ask these questions too. It is a massive talking point, and Kilkenny clearly didn't use the ball well in that second half, and we've continuously said that here now, and I think they probably should have learned from what happened with Wexford and Tipperary. We kind of give out of Wexford when it got into the clutch moment. They went route one instead of playing the ball intelligently like they had done up to that period. And obviously we talked about it already, the end of the Leinster final where they just started pumping at route one as well. So it seemed that they just kind of lost their way a little bit, and you expect more from Kenny. You expect them to be a little bit more astute, but at the same time that's probably Cody is very dogged in his approach and believes in fronting up and honesty and all those sort of things, which look, they're a given in intercounty hurling.
Yeah. Just final word on Liam Sheedy then, Cheddar. So what I love about Liam Sheedy is that he came in to Tipperary this year and he immediately put himself under pressure. The easy thing for him to do was go, "Look, we've won an under 21. I'm going to integrate some of those young lads. Don't be expecting results now straight away. We're going to get these young lads with good game time in them, and we might see an All-Ireland in the next 3 years." Do you know? Because that's the kind of nonsense. But that is the nonsense you hear about a lot of them. You buy yourself time. You take the pressure off yourself. He put all his chips in. Didn't he? He put all his chips in and trusted those lads that he knew were good enough, and now he has an All-Ireland. So you'd have a huge amount of time for that.
Yeah, but you have a full hand, you'll put all your chips in too.
When you have a very strong hand. But let's be honest, these are a team that didn't get out of their group last year. There's Michael Ryan's a very good manager too, a likeable manager and a steely manager, and the analysis last year, Gerald Loughnane analysis is they're gone.
All over 30.
They're all over 30, but they were over 30, and I'm not going to lie, if I was a new manager coming into Tipp, I might have looked down the road of let's move one or two of these on, like maybe Brian Cody has done in Kilkenny at times.
I'll let Cheddar pick this one, but I disagree with you. No, genuinely.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Look, Tipperary are very good players. It's a bit silly for this.
They weren't good last year.
No, look, Wooly, this is a bit lazy. That's a lazy comment, and I think a lot of the journalists are very lazy on this, and they're building up Liam here. Liam has a very, very good team, including some of the best hurlers that I've ever played with Tipperary, and I've seen some fair hurlers hurl with Tipperary. He knows that. Liam is not a fool. Liam is not going into Westmeath or Laois or Carlow or Antrim and turning them around into winning Leinster Championships and All-Irelands and that sort of thing. He knows well what he had available to him, and he also knows the connection that he has with the players. And I'll go back to Michael Ryan, Wooly, because I've heard so much crap being said about how Liam turned this around. Michael Ryan won an All-Ireland 2 years ago, having having come in, have been with that team 7 or 8 years, I think it's a bigger achievement from what Michael Ryan did 2 years ago, to be honest with you, and sustain improvement in that team and win another All-Ireland, whereas Liam came in as a sort of a fresh man into the team. And I do take the point that he certainly has found some defenders. They're a better team now, and but who is going to say that next year Tipp won't slip a little bit again, year 2 and that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of lazy analysis around that by lots of journalists about what Liam has done to the team. They were a good team.
No, they were. But he moved Noel McGrath to midfield. He got Bubbles fitter than he's ever been. So, there are things, and maybe if those players were there last year, maybe it's a bit of team spirit.
Noel McGrath played in midfield before. This is nothing new, Willie.
Yeah,
and I think he also, you need a bit of luck as well. Colm Barrett came back into the fold. He was kind of on and off the scene for the last couple of years.
Got him right. Barry Heffernan's a great find. He was outstanding in the second half.
He's been coming for a couple of years now.
But
he's
never
been
playing as well as this year.
Yeah, but look, every team needs that. I think Cheddar's main point is that he had the mainstay of a fantastic team. And it came out, I read it in the paper today, Michael Ryan was one of the first to ring Liam Sheedy and say, take that team, you'll win All-Ireland with them. Sometimes, and Cheddar's the man that's here as the manager, sometimes you just come towards the end of your tenure, you're not having any luck as much as anything else, and it just petered out. And they were very unlucky in Munster Championship last year. They drew with Cork. They were 10 or 12 points down at half time, that famous Gerloch Nan rant. They came back and drew with them, and could have won that game. Clare, wit of a post, would have put them through to knockout stages, and anything could have happened when Tipperary get to knockout stages, as we seen. So I take the point that Cheddar's making. I think Liam Sheedy knew exactly what he had. You looked at that team, you needed a couple of players definitely coming back into form. Seamie Callanan got an operation last year. He wasn't himself last year. He got him back, he got him fully fit, and I appreciate what he did with Bubbles. But look, he's an unbelievable talent. Getting him fit, that should be a given at intercounty level.
Yeah, but it hasn't seemed to have been a given, in fairness. He took the freeze off Callanan. He got Callanan as his real leader, as captain. He made some good decisions.
Because he obviously he went back with Callanan. He made him the main guy again, and he gave him that confidence in his ability to go back to the best that he was. Seamie was the best forward in Ireland there for a couple of years. But he still wasn't afraid. I think that's a valid point to take him off the freeze, and I think that was a brilliant move.
Yeah,
I think his big word to Tipperary is his ability to I suppose improve the confidence of players and self-improvement. I do take that, but sometimes, Willie, that's just simply we've had a bad year last year. And bear in mind, Tipper missed 3 or 4 players in a lot of those championship matches last year that Michael Ryan was involved with, and yet there was Brian has just explained there was only a pint in it. And sometimes you can come out of a year like that and then come in the following year with just simply a fresh management, and everything just falls into place for you. And I just don't want to underplay Liam's role in that, but it has been overplayed way too much, I think. Liam is a very astute man, knew exactly what he had, knew he's a great connection with that team. Bear in mind, he brought him from minor in 2006 up along. They're still only 29, 30. That's not old if a team wants to really go for it. And, he knew what was there.
Yeah. Can I just make the point that his backroom team was fantastic, and it shows, and I think he deserves great credit, it shows the humility of Eamon O'Shea to go from being coach, manager, and to come back in as coach again. That shows the level that man lives and breathes hurling, and as I said, the humility that he has to go back in there as coach, and he had a massive part in that, and he is a massive part. You always hear the Tipperaries talk about him really fondly, about the confidence, the self-confidence, particularly the forwards. He works very closely with the forwards, and just before the game, Seamie went up for the toss or whatever, and was coming back towards his place, and he's running along beside Eamon O'Shea, and Eamon O'Shea's popping him 3 or 4 balls, and you can just know he's talking to him, getting confident, and you love to see that connection, and obviously Tommy Dunn, another man, he arguably could be manager, and he shows the humility to come in as a coach, and buy into, and obviously the Darragh Egan just starting out in his coaching experience as well, so he'd a fantastic backroom team.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tommy Walsh before, Cheddar. He was obviously part of that much maligned Declan Ryan ticket in
Tommy
2000.
Dunn.
Tommy Dunn. Who did I say?
Tommy Walsh.
Tommy.
No,
Tommy
I think I'm delighted to actually talk up Tommy Dunn. He had a tough time in Tipperary previously, and got a lot of negative crap about that, and I'm just simply delighted for him. Bear in mind that he was the actual coach of the team prior to Eamon coming in. Now, he probably knew he was going to come in at some stage anyway. So Brian is right in terms of talking about the humility of the, I suppose, Tipperary management team for Tommy. So look, he's been a legend for Tuam and for Tipperary. there was a time I tried to coach a team in North Tipp to try and take the ball away from Tommy Dunn, and that wasn't easy, I can tell you. So he's been a legend for hurling and a legend for coaching, and a very, very humble man, and just simply delighted with him that he's got the success that he has. And it was interesting, Brian, as well, actually, that it was Eamon O'Shea that took the team talk. The last team talk on the field before the team broke to play was made by Eamon O'Shea yesterday.
Yeah, that's Liam Sheedy did that before though in 2009, 2010. He used to get the Eamon O'Shea used to talk to the team, and Sheedy had talked to the subs. So it just shows the buy-in. But speaking of subs, like the size of the panels nowadays, I know I'm going off point for a second, but like 40 Tipperary on the panel and 44 on the Kilkenny panel. Like when they start doing the Jubilee team in 25 years time, I don't know how they're going to get through it.
Definitely right, lads. That's a good point to leave it on. We'll come back with it.
Well, Willie, I can't leave this show without being really surprised to see Brian Carroll with the blue and white colours on the show here. So I just needed to call that out there.
We have another section, Cheddar, so you didn't need Paddy Power performance of the weekend on next. Paddy Power performance of the weekend. You could pick every single Tipperary player the way it turned out in the second half. They all played their part. John McGrath, I think he got 3 from play, the hook on Fennelly. What I liked about him, and this is a criticism of Pádraig Walsh actually, like Walsh neither marked him nor dropped off helping his full back line. He was neither here nor there on McGrath. Every time McGrath come to midfield, he'd be completely free. And why would you? The two McGraths were nearly always completely free, and they were setting everything up, and they're so smart on the ball. You nearly put the two McGraths in together. Noel got official man of the match. Not sure if you'd agree with that, Brian, or not. He was consistently good right throughout.
Yeah, he was, and looking back on it, he did hit a lot of ball. My initial reaction after the game, I wouldn't have given him, but like, look, if I suppose you look at the stats, the amount of ball that went through his hands, and he got a brilliant point from play, obviously as well. Yeah, personally for me, I would have been looking at Ronan Maher or even Seamus Callanan. I know he had a poor start, but after that I thought he really grew into the game. First big All-Ireland since 2016 as well. I thought he was absolutely excellent, got 2 fantastic points. But you talk about the point of John McGrath. I think that comes back, I know you're talking about Pádraig Walsh not picking him up, but that comes back to the movement to Tipp, and I think we've spoken about that already. The Wharton it wasn't as easy to tie them down because they were constantly moving. Apart from probably Seamie being inside all the time, I think the rest of them were constantly moving, so it wasn't as simple as straight matchups. Kilkenny didn't go that way. They were trying to leave Pádraig Walsh free and sit on the D and try and hurl space as opposed to hurling the man, so it wasn't as straightforward as that.
Yeah, John McGrath's fairly versatile, isn't he, Cheddar? Because he was wing forward and he did a lot of his damage on Pádraig Walsh at centre forward, I think, when Niall O'Mara went off. Yeah,
and I think what was unusual about him yesterday, I've always commented very highly. I think he's an incredible player, that if there are a couple of other teams around Ireland had him, they'd put themselves into serious contention to be All-Ireland winners. I think I mentioned about him in Dublin before. He's an incredibly efficient player, but he needs very few steps to get the shot away. Oftentimes it's off the back foot, it's nearly always a score. But he was a very different player yesterday. I mean, his just hook was an indication of that. He's a willingness to work out of position. He's normally the player on the end of these plays and just finishing the play for you. But his ability to work in between, maybe give the link pass and work around the place and drag defenders around the place with little decoy runs was really important to Tipperary. I'm just going back. I think I absolutely agree with Brian. I think the player I would give man of the match to yesterday, because he simply solved the difficult spot for Tipperary, was Ronan Maher.
Yeah.
I think he's been excellent. He's probably Tipp will be delighted with him in terms of the old style full back of just going for it and catching the ball and that. And it might be easy to do towards the end of the game because you had an extra body around him, so you can commit yourself to something like that. But he took the chance on Colin and done well. Equally on the other side, I think Kilkenny have found a full back in Hugh Lawler. Seamie Callanan, he's a fantastic player. For a big man, he's incredibly quick and incredibly skillful. He's got absolutely everything in the game. And I thought Hugh Lawler did well on him. Sometimes he was isolated, and when that crossfield ball goes on the outside of your body, it's very, very difficult to defend.
No, you can't defend it.
You can't defend it, really. And once the likes of Seamus Callanan or any of these players get the ball in their hand, you're in trouble. Your initial tackle then is so important to you that he doesn't break your tackle. And I thought he'd done really well there as well. So just to come back to the point, I just think Ronan Maher was really, really strong right throughout the game yesterday. And because it was such a difficult position for Tipperary to solve over the last number of years, I certainly would give it.
And you'd give Ronan Maher a lot of credit in that he's better than a fullback. I don't want to be disrespectful to fullbacks, but he can play a job in midfield. He can take sidelines. He can score. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's sacrificing a lot of his qualities to play that role.
Yeah, he certainly is. And look, Tipp debated whether to put his brother Pádraig back full back.
Who's done it before
in the Munster League and the start of the National Hurling League. They tried Pádraig there, and he just wasn't as comfortable. Obviously, he played a bit there when he started out his career. So Ronan Maher, in fairness to him, I think he solved that spot for Tipperary, and I think he'll stay there for a number of years.
Yeah, he could be stuck there now. That's Noel McGrath. Did you see the John Donnelly hit on Noel McGrath? He came running down to do Noel McGrath, and he bounced off him like a fly.
And John Donnelly was hurt after it.
He was hurt. He stayed down, and he's decent sized fella, John Donnelly.
Yeah, he's massive.
It's just weird the connection at that stage, because he was the aggressor in that. Noel McGrath was just running out.
Yeah, but sometimes that can happen.
Yeah.
You know yourself, and you can just steal yourself just before it happens, and you can come out the best of it. So.
There's no worse sickener though, is there, to do it, and then for you to come out the worst, a fella that wasn't even kind of going for you.
But I thought, Wooly, I think it'd be interesting to do the stats on Noel McGrath in terms of the impact of the times he has the ball in his hand. What's the impact on the opposition? He's a savage influencer of the way Tipperary hurl. And I just thought that Kilkenny just left him. Killian was sort of playing his own game, and Noel was playing his own game, and it sort of drifted that way the whole way through. I know he was sort of created the space himself towards the end of the game because they had the extra man. But you cannot leave Noel McGrath influence a game under any circumstances. I'd nearly man-mark him. I don't give a damn if he's on the 21-yard line because he's that good and that dangerous.
Yeah, crazy.
Even the long-range balls that he's able to spin, he will create a killing pass from 80 metres, 100 metres up the field every single time, and you cannot allow him that sort of space to do damage to you.
But it seemed a mistake from Kilkenny, because Conor Brown picked up Darragh Fitzgibbon and he picked up Cian Lynch, and he did the man marking role pretty well,
and he marked Breen.
Yeah, and he marked. So it was a really strange decision. Obviously all the analysts coming into the game, you expected Conor Brown to pick him up. I don't know, were Kilkenny trying to do something different or something, but strange decision, and it didn't work.
I'd say they probably were. In fairness to Kilkenny management, sometimes you make some decisions and you can just go with the statistics that you have, and they may very well have felt, look, everybody would know Noel McGrath, he's not a very quick player. He'll travel around the field and that all right, but he just doesn't have the legs to do a box to box player as we'd call him years ago, and maybe Kilkenny thought that Killian would just be too much for him. He'd overpower him and wear him down, but it didn't happen like that.
But just on that, Cheddar, how could they think that Killian Buckley's not in the form of his life? He's actually having a terrible year. How could they think he could out hurl Noel McGrath? I would be very surprised if that was the instruction. Killian, go out and out hurl a player that even in your prime you probably wouldn't out hurl. Never mind, struggling to get on the team.
You've got to give credit to Kilkenny management. They're seeing that in training. They may very well have seen that Killian was coming into form here. By the way, he is an exceptional hurler.
Exceptional athlete as well.
An exceptional athlete, Brian. And on another day, you're right. Look, he hasn't had his best year, not necessarily due to form, due to injury. But when he was in form, I probably would pick him to play on Noel McGrath and just wear him down, go box to box and cause problems for Noel. But Noel doesn't worry about that really. He let the other player play away. He knows that he'll get enough ball either passed to him from his defence coming out, because he'll make himself available. It was interesting in that middle third, particularly the last 20-25 minutes, how many times Tipperary players became very free in the middle of the field. Bubbles knocked the ball over the bar there at one stage. There was nobody within 20 metres or 30 metres of him, and the game wasn't over at that stage. And I thought Tipp were really good at that. Getting free in the passing lanes, make themselves available for those 30-40 metres pass, and that's where Noel McGrath will kill you. He'll stick that ball to hand, and then of course you have long range shooters like him will put it over the bar. So it's a difficult one to crack, but I just thought leaving Noel McGrath free in any shape or form in that game was going to be dangerous for you.
But the thing about that is the spare man at the back, so Tipp could get it to the spare man. Now he's all the time in the world to find those, whereas in the first half they're under so much savage pressure. You can't. You're just not able to see. You're under. There's two lads tackling you. You've got no pressure, and then those short they're on, but they're not being found because you're just all over the place. Whereas when you have a spare man, you're under no pressure. Now you're able to flick it to Noel McGrath and John McGrath, and all those little shorter passes work, right?
But clearly, and we've discussed this, Tipperary won the tactical battle hands down. Kilkenny picked their 15, played their 15 exactly. You knew what you were getting. What it says in the tin, the half forward line are going to drop deep. That's about as much tactics as implied. They never tried to get any matchups right or anything like that. Tipperary obviously were the ones that were trying all those different things.
They did. Hugh went on Callanan. Murphy did well on forward, and Holden did well on Bubbles.
Full back on full forward, and whichever two corner forwards came in, the two boys picked them up.
Bubbles went in full forward at the start, and Hugh was on him, and then they reshuffled it around. around, right?
That one, okay, yeah. So maybe that one in particular.
So I think they did their matchups in the full back line.
Yeah, in the full back line, yeah. But after that, then it's just like, Hurling comes onto you, So I think they made a big mistake, and I think we'll all agree on that Noel McGrath should have been man-marked.
Oh, yeah. There's
by Conor Brown in particular.
Yeah, no,
I
I
don't
completely
think they
agree.
asked enough questions about Tipperary earlier on either. What Brian is saying in terms of just moving some players. Look, you could have left Buckley wing back and brought Conor Fogarty to the middle of the field to do that man marking job as well. And they've done that in the past. I was just surprised, in terms of the setups and some of the matchups that they had. But I'll qualify all of that by saying, Brian is seeing this in Kilkenny training. You've got to go on that. You cannot go on things that you think might happen. You've got, if something is happening in training and if Killian Buckland is showing the form that he's capable of, well, then you've got to go with that.
And invariably when you lose, obviously you're going to question it all.
That's
correct.
Well, that's it. You're going to question it. But geez, it was a full half. Bubbles, lads, 1-2. He missed 2 really easy chances. One in the first half, he could have kept going with it, and he just went for a long range one. And inexplicably, Bubbles mishit another one, which you very rarely see this man doing it.
And they were close together. It was kind of like
close together.
Two plays, almost same players. You'd expect him to score them.
He ended up with 1-2. But Michael Ryan said down at the live show in Thurles, he said that what did he say, Cheddar? He's the most talented hurler he's ever seen, or something. You can see it in him, though. He's so gifted, it's unreal.
Oh, he's class, in fairness to him. And look, we've said it earlier, he got back to fitness. That was the big thing. And Sheedy had him working really, really hard as well. Look, we know how good he is. His wrists are phenomenal, and when he got into his pomp in that second half, he started to throw a couple of balls over his shoulder, and got a great point underneath the Cusack stand, and obviously finished the goal really well. But he's deadly.
When he finds space, I think the Tipp way of creating space was a little bit different than Limerick last year. It wasn't as structured, and I think Eamon leaves that to the players a little bit more. I think Eamon, if you were to say does Eamon have, I think he gives the players the sort of tools to do the job, to be able to find the space. But that's very easy to say as well when you've got that type of quality player. They've incredible forwards. We all agree on that. And so if they make the space themselves, if Bubbles find space, you're in trouble from any distance. And I think the difference between them and Limerick was that the Tipperary players, when they got into the space in the middle of the third, they pinged it out of the bar. Limerick didn't have that ability. Look at the points that they missed. Bubbles didn't miss them yesterday. I think the other thing that was interesting is the pace of the Tipperary backs coming out of the defence. Woolley creates the 2-on-1 coming out that then allows you to free up somebody coming onto the half back line or onto the middle of the field. And look, Seamus Kennedy was sprinting like a greyhound coming out of the field. Or Parry Marr the same, even if he was coming a little bit deeper. Barry Heffron the same. They were sprinting out of the defence with the possession. And I just qualify all of that and say, look, when you're 7 or 8 points ahead, we all know that. We've all played the game. Your tail is up. Things go for you. The ball runs for you. You're much more creative, much more positive about yourself. You take chance. You'll take risks because you're 7 or 8 points up. And there was a little bit of that what happened yesterday. But Tipperary have the players to be able to do that.
You'll always hear the lazy one. Oh God, they're fierce fit, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
The other team, they weren't as fit as them. Oh no, seriously, you're winning.
When
you're winning,
you want ball.
You want ball. You'll run everywhere.
Especially the lads that don't want ball when you're losing.
Yeah. And look, they had an extra man as well.
And that was it. So Paddy Marr, Seamus Kennedy. Seamus Kennedy, in fairness, he's able to fairly bullet them over the bar on the run. There's no loops about them. They were bloody shotguns over the bar from a long distance.
He missed an easy chance in the first half. You would expect him because he set himself up on his right hand side. Actually, he hit that standing, so that's a very valid point. Of when he was on the run, he got 2 great scores.
Paddy Marr, you would say, not one of his man of the match performances, but he caught the ball off Walter. He made one huge run down into the heart of the Kilkenny defence in the first half when Tipperary weren't in the game. And I think those 2 kind of moments of inspiration almost ignited, and then the goal ignited. But Paddy Marr took it on himself. It's all cliches about leaders and inspirational players, but they were 2 inspirational plays from your inspirational kind of leader. And these things, it's not said for no reason that you need your leaders to stand up.
And Paddy is unbelievable. And we talked about this before. His record in county finals for Hurling Sarsfield it's off the charts, the amount of man out of matches he's won. So on the big day, Paddy Marr always steps up. You know, we were critical of him here over the sending off against Laois because we said it was very unlike Paddy because he's such a warrior. He's so strong. He's so physical. And he relished the battle yesterday. Which he usually does, in fairness to him. Like, he is a fantastic hurler, and no matter what way you want to mix it with Paddy, he is able to do it because he's so strong in the air. Obviously, being left hand, he's able to get up and win those high balls, but you know, he can score, he can do it all, and he can defend really well too. So look, he is a warrior. That's the way I describe him.
He definitely would. Just finally, I think Paul Murphy did well on Jason Ford, but his use of the ball is shocking, isn't it? Paul Murphy, he's into these clearances that could go straight to a Tipperary man, which is, it's not really what you want. But I thought he kept Ford pretty quiet, other than 1 point. But probably wasn't too many. John Donnelly, like you said, or
John Donnelly was very good.
And TJ Reid had some brilliant, incredible moments, especially in the first 20 minutes. He looked like he was all over the. There was 3 TJ Reids.
Yeah, I think John Donnelly deserves an honourable mention, to be fair to him. Like 3 points in his first All-Ireland final. He did a lot of work. He got back into the half back line a huge amount and carried ball forward. He was unlucky for another score. Brian Hogan took it down with the hurl that time, not the hand. So like he had a big influence on the game from a Kilkenny perspective. But I'd certainly take your point with Paul Murphy's, you know, use of the ball can be quite poor at times, and I think Tipperary, you know, they've seen that and they put him under pressure as well, and you know, they can give him the ball at times as well. He'll invariably end up giving it back to you, because I think Paul's still in that mould of the great team that they had, where they got the ball and just drove it down the field. Get rid of it.
It looks weird in the modern game when you see a loose one where it's just like, Jesus, did you not even look there? You know, it's just, I think it's moved on. Right, lads, it's between the two McGraths and Ronan Marr, so I'm going to let the two of you come to a consensus there.
I think we have it.
Ronan Marr. Okay, right, well, congratulations.
We'll go against the Sunday game anyway, so.
Yeah, well, I was the same. I was thinking like you. When I heard Noel McGrath got it, I went, Noel McGrath, I thought he was good, but Ronan Marr was more eye-catching to me. But who's to say? Like, it's eye-catching to whoever you think. Right, Ronan Marr, congratulations. Obviously, this is a bigger deal than winning the All-Ireland yesterday. You get a pair of Paddy Power lucky pants that Brian Carroll has here. Not his ones.
Clarify that one.
All right, we'll be back on Thursday. We might talk about Player of the Year. I had a good joke with Seamie Callanan there about it. I think he's a shoe-in, but we'll leave all that to Thursday. JJ, I'm sure we'll be back that day, and we'll talk to you then. Good luck.